Hello, everyone, and welcome to another one of Winona's live Q&As. Today's a special one. It's our doctor dialogue. So I think these are really special because we usually kind of touch on a little bit of a subject, but so I'll give that over to Dr. Green in a minute to kind of introduce himself and talk about that subject in a moment. But just wanted to say again, really, we're so glad you're here. I think it means such a big thing when you kind of, take the time out of your night to be here to ask your questions. We love getting to kind of hear from you all and get to touch on all that. So super glad you're here. Just wanted to also point out a couple things. If you haven't heard yet, we do now have the Winona app, which is super, super exciting. This just launched last week. There's already thousands of women in there. So we'd love you kind of just to jump into that as well. It's a great place to have, deeper conversations about menopause, to kind of get, your questions answered. To make connections, join meetups. There's a lot happening in there, as well as the fact that we're going to be doing a lot of our events going forward kind of in the app. So please go find that. We would love you to get connected in there. It's a really, really cool new thing. That's been really, really exciting. If you've been to one of these before, you probably know some of the gist of kind of what we do. If not, though, this is a great time to go ahead and start putting your questions in the chat. It gets a little bit crazy in there usually, so I always like to tell people, go ahead and get your questions in there as quickly as possible, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. I always love getting the questions and seeing everyone's kind of, things that they're wondering about. So go ahead and start dropping those in there. I do see that we have someone that says hi from Wisconsin. I'm so glad to see you. I think that's so fun. It's one of my favorite things about Winona is that we just really have people kind of from everywhere, which I think is so cool across the US. But so, Dr. Green, I will kind of pass it over to you to do a little introduction of yourself while some questions get dropped in there, and then we'll get to the questions.
Great. So thanks, Benny. My name's Mike Green. I am an OGYN. I am also the Chief Medical Officer of Winona. And Winona's kind of been my little baby, along with some other really important people. And it's been really exciting to watch it grow and be able to touch so many lives and help women in an area that sometimes they just can't get help with from their regular in-person doctor. So really thrilled to be a part of Winona. I spent 17 years doing full-scale OBGYN. I've worked as an OB hospitalist. Now I spend most of my time doing this, although I do still see patients. I live in a small town and we had a little rural health clinic. And so I staffed that to be part of the community and help some women, because without me, it's an hour drive to the closest gynecologist. So I do still see people in a brick and mortar situation along with online. So please put your questions in the chat. This goes a lot better if you ask questions for me to answer. Otherwise, I'll just start rambling on. We do want to talk a little bit about vasomotor symptoms, is what they're called. That's like hot flashes and night sweats, and also how that can affect sleep and sleep disruption. So it's one of the sort of like cardinal things of the menopause transition. When people think about menopause symptoms, that's usually what they think of, is hot flashes and night sweats. But the truth is, there's a lot of women that have other symptoms besides that, and many women that get all kinds of symptoms that they may not even realize are symptoms of menopause and don't get hot flashes or night sweats. So they think, oh, it must not be that. So the absence of hot flashes and night sweats does not mean you're not going through the menopause transition or that your other symptoms are not from it. But these are sort of the classic things that people think about. It's the sort of stereotypical thing we see, like, this is what people make jokes about. You see cartoons about it. I remember seeing a cartoon with a lady with a coffee pot on her head, and she was trying to be super efficient putting her hot flashes to use. So, these are the kind of things that we see. So hot flashes and night sweats. Night sweats are basically just hot flashes that occur at night, and they tend to wake people up at night, and then they're drenched in sweat sometimes so bad they have to change their pajamas and their sheets and stuff. And that can be really annoying and really disruptive. Hot flashes can happen during the day or at night, and they're basically this sort of sensation of hotness that goes through the body. And they can be experienced in many different ways. And they can last from a few seconds to several minutes or sometimes even longer. They really can present in lots of different ways. And what's really thought to trigger these is the abrupt changes in estrogen. And so what happens is the ovaries are supposed to make estrogen, and basically they make sort of a little bit at a time, and they release a little bit at a time. So you get this nice steady amount of estrogen. And it can vary through the cycle, but it doesn't go quickly up and down. It kind of varies in a nice sort of uh, kind of soft way. And what happens as the ovaries start not being as productive is they still want to get the hormones out, but they're not able to do it in a smooth way. So they kind of just spit out they can, and you get these spikes of hormones. And it's these spikes of estrogen levels that tend to cause the hot flashes or the night sweats. And so it tends to be really intense as you're going through the menopause transition. And then as you sort of pass through it and go through, you complete menopause and time goes by, for most women, those hot flashes get better. For some reason, there are some women where they don't, and they separate those for quite a long time. So it's interesting. Some of the symptoms of menopause get better after menopause is completed, like hot flashes and night sweats. Some symptoms like vaginal dryness and some other skin changes and hair changes actually continue to worsen as you go through menopause. So it's kind of an interesting thing. The treatment for hot flashes, the best treatment is to treat the underlying cause, and that is to add back the estrogen that the ovaries are trying to make. And so that way you have a nice steady state of estrogen. And so even when the ovaries put out a little bit of estrogen, it doesn't make that abrupt change because you have a nice steady state already on board. And so hormone replacement therapy does that. And usually that's one of the what I call quick wins. So when you start HRT, it can take a while for the symptoms to really go away, but the hot flash night sweats are usually early wins. They go away fairly quickly. Some of the other things like the metabolic changes and the weight loss that happens as you treat with HRT. So people often gain weight. So reversing that, sometimes the sleep issues, the mood issues, some of those things can take longer. Hair issues certainly take longer, but the hot flashes and night sweats, for a lot of people, they get better fairly quickly, which is pretty nice for people. And so estrogen is really the way to treat it. There are other medicines that can help. DHEA is a fairly new medication that treats hot flashes that's non-hormonal. And so for women that, for one reason or another, can't take hormones, DHEA can be a great solution for that. But it really only treats these vasomotor symptoms. It doesn't treat all the other symptoms of menopause. So really, if you can tolerate estrogen and you're a candidate for it, it's a much better way to treat it because it doesn't just treat the hot flashes, but treats all the symptoms of menopause and gives long-term health benefits. So that's kind of the hot flashes and the night sweats in a nutshell. Sleep disruptions are pretty common in menopause and for lots of reasons, but night sweats is really a big one. So when you wake up in bed, you're soaking wet, that can really mess up your sleep. Also, a lot of times women need to urinate more frequently. And so sometimes that can disrupt their sleep as well. And estrogen can help that as well. So, apart from the fact that it's a drag when you don't get into that sleep, it can also cause other issues down the road because when people are sleep deprived, it can affect cortisol system, it can affect the way they deposit fat. And so people tend to hold on to calories that create fatty foods, that create high calorie foods. And also when you're sleep deprived, your brain doesn't work as well. And so you don't have the willpower to not the poor choices. So not only craving the poor choices, but to sort of use the willpower to avoid it. So that can really make waking a bigger problems and also unhealthy. So working on the sleep can help all kinds of things, including issues. And usually the underlying issues, the menopause transition or sleep issues, have to do with those night sweats, particularly is probably the most common thing, but also sometimes on the urinary frequency, but those are treated well with estrogen. So that's kind of a summary of sort of hot flashes and night sweats and sleep disruption. The treatment is really going to the estrogen. And that's something that we can provide as a pill or a patch or a cream through an. So I hope that's helpful. I hope we have some questions. And you can probably move on to the Q&A so you can almost tuck in.
So
talk about.
No, thank you so much, Dr. Green. I think that was really helpful, kind of getting like a little bit of, a background and kind of how that all is all going on in there. So I think that was great. We do have a few questions. We have some that we have in there, so we'll jump into those. Just for I see there's a few new people that have joined as well. If you weren't here right when we jumped in, feel free to go ahead and start putting your questions in the chat, and we'll get to those. But we have one question starting off from Rosie, which is kind of on the topic of hot flashes. And she says, after a year of being HRT on an HRT, why are my hot flashes back at night now? So I'm guessing they've gone away and they've come back. So like, why might that be, Dr. Green?
So this is actually pretty common. The body's needs can change over time. So a dose that might work for you a year ago may not be adequate anymore as you continue to move through the menopause transition. So it might be that you need a higher dose of the medication, and that's most likely what the issue is. The opposite can happen too. Sometimes as time goes on, your body doesn't need as much medication, and that can show up as some side effects. But in your case, it sounds like we may need to increase the dose of the estrogen component of your HRT. So I would send a message to your Winona doctor. We're very happy to help. And they can talk with you about how to help with that, and get you on a dose that's going to get you feeling better again.
Absolutely. And our next question is from Laura. And Laura says, my last cycle was in 2009. So I had my first hot flash when I was 37. I'm 54 now. She says, it seems like this is still happening. When does this end? When does postmenopause start? And when is it over?
So the definition of menopause is 1 year without a period. So if your last period is 2009, you completed menopause in 2010. So you are postmenopausal now. But everybody's a little bit different in how their symptoms go away. So for most people, the symptoms will gradually, some of the symptoms that I touched on before will gradually get better with time, like the hot flashes and night sweats. There are some individuals that keep having those. My mother-in-law is in her 80s and she still gets that hot flashes. So, for some women, unfortunately, it can last long time. But for most women, that part gets better. Some of the other areas still needs help. And that can be, for instance, some of the vaginal changes like vaginal dryness and thinning, skin and hair changes, can all continue to be a problem. So, it's safe to be on hormone replacement therapy as long as it's giving you benefit. So there isn't sort of a, 5 years and that's it. You don't use it up on it's actually, there are long-term health benefits with staying on it for a long period of time. So as long as you're still having symptoms, it's fine to continue to treat the symptoms with medication. Lives will feel better and get the health benefits of the medication as well. So when will this end? Boy, if I knew that, I'd be buying lottery tickets because you kind of need a crystal ball because everybody's different. It's amazing how unique and varied the human body is and the human experience. So your story is going to be different than anyone else's, and you'll tell us when this all ends.
Absolutely. Our next question is from Tammy. And Tammy says, I began HRT last week. Yay. Or she doesn't say exactly what it is, but HRT. And she says, I'm 51 and have suffered quite a while before I went for HRT. She says, but I'm noticing I have some major acne this week, kind of like my 14-year-old self's acne, which is also enlarged and painful breasts. Any help here?
Yeah. So one of the interesting things, kind of fortunate, unfortunate things about HRT is that the side effects tend to happen early on and then get better. The benefits tend to take a little while, but then last a long time. So if you're only been on it for a week, it doesn't surprise me that you're having some side effects right now. It takes about 3 to 4 weeks for the levels to really get up to where we want them and then be in a steady state. So as you take the medication, your levels are going up fairly quickly, and then they sort of level off and get into what we call a steady state where it's a nice steady amount. The body doesn't like change, and the rapid changing in hormones that's happening right now because starting hormone replacement therapy can cause side effects. So breast tenderness is a very common one, and that's probably coming from the estrogen. and that tends to get better after a few weeks. For most people, it definitely gets better within a month or so. If it continues beyond, a couple of months, it may be overdose is too high. But you're on early enough that I would wager that this is going to get better pretty quickly, and it's part of that early side effect profile we see from the changing hormone levels. Acne is a similar thing. Just like when you're a teenager and your hormones are all of a sudden soaring, and that's when you start getting acne and any things. And then it levels off and gets better for most people. Same thing, you got those rapid change in hormones. That's probably what's triggering the acne. It should get better, hopefully within the next few days. So hang in there,
Good.
and relief should be coming.
I feel like that's a great motto. Hang in there and hopefully relief's coming soon. I love that. Our next question is I have been on the 50/50 cream along with the DHEA for 3 months now and feel good. She says, at what point should it be discontinued? If so, she says, my age is 54 years old and I had a TAH at the age of 35 and recently began taking these wonderful products.
So, the average woman is on HRT for about 5 years, some more, some less. It used to be the idea that we wanted people on the lowest possible dose for the shortest amount of time. But that concept is really kind of going away there's a lot of research now showing that HRT as a long-term medication can give significant health benefits, particularly cardiovascular benefits. So it can decrease your risk of heart attack and other cardiovascular issues, which is super important because that's the number one cause of death for women. And so if you can decrease that risk, you can extend life expectancy. So it's really safe to be on it as long as it's helpful and it's not causing side effects. You don't develop some kind of health problem or it no longer be appropriate. So, like I said, the average woman is 5 years, but you could be on it a lot longer than that if not, or it might be that, you want to go off it sooner and that's okay too. But certainly if it's safe to stay on this for the long term.
Absolutely. And our next question comes from Eileen. Eileen says, I'm on my first week, the cream and the DHEA capsules. She says, how long until relief can be expected once starting on treatment?
So there are some things, as I said before, like hot flashes and night sweats that tend to get early relief, usually within the first 3 to 4 weeks, sometimes sooner than that. Other things tend to take a lot longer. So weight loss, hair changes, hair improvement can take a lot longer. Those can take 3 to 6 months before you really see significant improvement. And then there are other things sort of in between. Sleep, sometimes is a quick win. Sometimes it takes longer for people, depending on what's causing the sleep problems. Vaginal symptoms can take kind of an in-between amount of time for some people. Some people get some relief pretty quick, but for some people it takes longer to get the tissues in the vagina to really respond to the estrogen treatment and improve with the dryness from the glands starting to improve. And also as the vaginal tissues thicken, you get more support with your bladder and it can help with those symptoms. Skin changes sometimes take a little bit longer as well. So it's a mixed bag. And you should get some symptom relief in the first few weeks to a month, and then more and more symptoms should start getting better as time goes on. So it's a bit of a process.
Absolutely. And our next question asker says, hello from Colorado. I'm 53, period stopped at 50. I didn't gain any weight due to menopause, but have lost libido and energy, but gained depression and many more disrupting symptoms like vertigo, weakness, and anxiety. She says, I'm a new patient and have yet to receive my first prescription. My question is, would I gain weight after being on HRT? She says, I've also been on fertility medications for 8 years. And would that put me at a disadvantage for being able to take HRT without the side effects like cancer?
So the fertility medicines do not change your risk as far as HRT does. They have their own sort of risk, but it doesn't multiply any risk from the HRT. So that's a non-issue. And so whether you've been on fertility medicines or not, it doesn't really change the risk of HRT. I just lost the first half. Sorry.
No, you're all good. The other one was, would I gain weight
Oh,
after
gaining
taking
weight. Right,
HRT?
right, right.
Yeah.
So if you look at long term, most people find it easier to lose weight on HRT. So HRT should not cause long term weight gain. Some women experience some water retention in the first few weeks, which water retention is going to make the scale look heavier and you may feel swollen, but that's a temporary thing. And it's not really real weight gain, it's just water weight. And that tends to come off with time for those that get it. A lot of people don't get it at all. Some people get it really bad, and most people, if they get it, they get a little bit. That tends to go away usually within a few weeks if you get that. But it shouldn't cause, HRT really should not cause weight gain. There were some older types of HRT, particularly different types of progestins. Um, so we use micronized progesterone, which is a bioidentical progesterone. Synthetic progesterones are actually called progestins. And there were some that have been used for HRTs that really stimulate appetite and can cause weight gain, which is why there's sort of this thing out there that HRT can make people cause weight. And that was true with the older medications. But with the bioidentical hormones, we really don't see that. Micronized progesterone does not typically cause the increased appetite that some of the progestins do. And I mean, unless you're on a crazy high dose. So for most people, they find that HRT is at minimum weight neutral, and for a lot of people helps them lose weight in the long term.
Absolutely. And our next question is from Carmen. And Carmen says, hello from Washington State. I just started with HRT barely 4 to 5 weeks ago. My struggle has been with mood. She says, I've been crying at news stories or commercials. Will HRT help stabilize my mood swings?
It should. Assuming this is coming from your hormones, and it sounds like it probably is, HRT should stabilize that. It's kind of similar to pregnant women and postpartum movement. So it's, again, this rapid change, this abrupt change in hormone levels can really mess with people's moods. And I've seen a lot of obstetrics do this all the time. Like, commercial comes on, I'm crying like a baby. What's going on? It's not hormones. So both, as I described at the beginning, this sort of abrupt on and off of the hormone release from the ovaries can certainly cause mood changes. But also at the beginning, when you start HRT, as those levels climb until we get to steady state, because you have these changing hormone levels as we're getting you to where you need to be, that can cause these mood issues as well. I do expect this to get better, probably over the next few weeks.
Absolutely. And our next question is from Eileen. Eileen says, is it better to take the medications before bed to help reduce hot flashes and sleep disruptions, or is there no difference than if it's taken earlier in the day?
Most people find that estrogen and progesterone are best taken at that time. Again, just as you said, to maximize the sleep benefit. There's a small percentage of people where progesterone in particular can do the exact opposite and can act as an activating, almost like a caffeine-like medicine. So if you find that you take it and all of a sudden, bing, you're wide awake, like you just had an energy drink, you may be one of those, small percentage of people where progesterone does that. In that case, you should switch to the morning. And then an even smaller percentage of patients, progesterone can give them like crazy dreams. So if that's happening again, taking it in the morning will fix that. DHEA, I find for most patients, it doesn't really matter when they take it. Some people say that taking it in the morning gives them an energy boost, and so that might be worth doing. But I found for most people, it doesn't seem to be as important as it does for the estrogen and progesterone. So if it's easier to take it all together at night, do it that way. Or if you want to try the DHEA in the morning, that's a reasonable way to go as well.
You might have, oh, you're back. You dropped out for a second, but you're
Oh,
welcome.
is that okay? Sorry. Where did I leave off?
No, it was just for about 10 seconds right at that end. So I think you got the whole thing answered. Yeah. No, you're good. Well, our next question is from Rosie. And Rosie says, what can be done for low libido and if my current 50/50 HRT is not improving it?
So DHEA can often help with libido. So I don't know if you're on the DHEA, but that would be something that could be added in addition to the 50/50 cream to help with libido. And for some people, that work quite well. So if you're not on DHEA, I would message your Winona doctor and ask about that, because that may be very helpful for you.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Green, that looks like it's kind of all the questions we have going on in there for tonight. If anyone else has another question they'd love to ask, please drop it in the chat. But just kind of a few things I want to point out as well that are like really great resources to be able to use. Your doctors are always available 24/7 as well in your patient portal. So that's what I always tell people too, is that they are there to answer your questions. They love to hear from you. They want to talk things through. That's a great place to reach out to. That way, we also, if you love these doctor dialogues and our live Q&As, we have a podcast called The Menopause Hour. And it's on Spotify and wherever you get your podcasts. And that is also, I love that one as well. I think it's fun. Kind of, you can put it on in the gym, you can put it on in your car on the way, like to work from coming back. And so I think that that's also kind of a great resource to check out as well. I do see that someone's typing, so I'll give them a second kind of to maybe drop a
Let me,
last question.
yeah, look
Yeah,
at Dr.
Dr.
Kuhl. So,
Yeah,
because
please do.
you did introduce our new Minoxidil hair
Yes.
serum. So this is really exciting for us. So we've been in business now over 4 years, and we have added exactly 2 new products in those 4 years. So, we're a company that believes in sort of do what you do it really well, and don't do a bunch of other stuff. And so a lot of other companies have like this huge menu of stuff. And it's pretty hard for me to imagine how people are doing this well. So we're really careful. And it takes us a long time because we want to get it right. So we did our skin cream last year, which is just an amazing thing. And that's been super popular. Including my wife absolutely loved it. We had just introduced our newest thing, which is the Minoxidil hair serum. And my wife was one of the beta testers, and she's very happy with it as well. And so this is it's a prescription strength minoxidil. It's not, you can't buy this on Amazon. You need a prescription for this because it's at 7%. It's topical. It goes into the scalp because you don't really rub it in your hair, rub it in your scalp because that's where the hair follicles are. And it works really well at making the hair healthier and thicker. Now, the thing about hair, which is a little frustrating, is hair is on a cycle that can be like 3 to 6 month cycles. So any hair treatment is not going to work immediately. Hair treatments always take a long time because of the physiology of the way the hair cycles. So people usually in about 2 to 3 months, people start noticing some improvement, but it really can be 4 to 6 months before you really see huge improvement. But this is a really good product. It can really help with hair thinning. It can make your hair thicker and healthier. But, don't expect to do 3 applications and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, my hair is amazing. So it doesn't quite work that way. And I wish it did. Boy, if I had a magic wand, believe me, I would not be holding back. It's fairly simple. You put the drops in your hands, rub it into your scalp, and let it sit there and let it do its magic. So that's something that we're really excited about. Like I said, my poor wife is one of our guinea pigs, and she has been on this for a while now. I'm super happy with the results. So you can ask your Winona doctor about this, and I think it's something that is maybe really helpful for our patients.
Absolutely. And I know also a few of our ambassadors have gotten the chance to try the product already and they've been loving it too. So I think it's a really exciting one we have, kind of coming out as well. And it looks like we do have one last question, kind of just at the end here. Or it's a two-part question. The first part is, our question is, I have a maintenance regimen for blood pressure, hypothyroidism, and cholesterol. Is it all right to have HRT in addition to this mix?
Yes, absolutely. So here's the thing. As long as your medication is controlling these things, then it's safe to be uninjected. If you have uncontrolled high blood pressure, you really need to get your blood pressure controlled before you start HRT. But if you're on maintenance of blood pressure, thyroid medications and lipid medications, HRT can be extremely helpful and very safe for you. In particular, actually, HRT can also help with your lipid profile. I mean, it's not a statin, it's not going to work like that, but it does help increase HDL, which is the good cholesterol, and decrease LDL. So it can be good for your cholesterol numbers as well. It should be neutral for your blood pressure as long as your blood pressure is controlled and your thyroid as well. Some people think that HRT messes up the thyroid, and that's not true at all. However, thyroid is a finicky thing. And I'm sure you've noticed this if you've been on thyroid meds, your doctor wants to check your thyroid every so often. It sometimes has to adjust to those. So thyroid doses sometimes need to be adjusted from time to time, but it won't be because the HRT isn't going to make it worse or cause problems. So with those things, it'd be absolutely safe to start hormone replacement therapy.
Absolutely. And for on that same question as well, there's a second part. And they also said they also have an anti-anxiety medicine. They say, I'm hoping this would go away with HRT. Is that true?
So some people do experience anxiety as a symptom of the menopause transition. So if that's what's driving the anxiety, HRT can be very helpful. And actually, we often see patients who go to their doctor. Their doctor doesn't realize that these symptoms are from their estrogen levels and the menopause transition, and instead treats them with anti-anxiety medications or um, antidepressants or other kinds of medications.
Yeah.
And when the patient starts HRT, they find out, hey, wow, this is actually helping my symptoms, and they're able to wean off of your other medications. So don't just stop your anti-anxiety medication. You definitely want to go through with the doctor that's prescribing that. Um, but it's possible that the HRT will make it so that you don't need as much, or maybe not need it at all um, once the HRT kicks in. But again, that's not something that you want to do it yourself. Um, you want to definitely do it with the doctor's advice that's helping you.
Absolutely. And it looks like we do have another question about our new hair product. They're wondering on the hair care product, does the hair fall out when stopped, like the over-the-counter type?
So so when you stop the medicine, no. Sometimes there can be in the first few weeks an increased shedding of hair as the body sort of gets rid of the old hairs to make room for the new hairs to come in, and that's honestly part of the hair cycle. Um, but it shouldn't cause, you know, some giant rebound effect when you stop it. And although when you stop it, the beneficial effects do go away. So eventually your hair will, may go back to the way it was. So it sort of works while you're using it, but it shouldn't cause a sort of global shedding when you stop it.
Absolutely. And it looks like we did have one other question pop up as well. We have a woman wondering, she says, I was prescribed a DHEA, but I haven't started it yet because I've been a bit nervous hearing about some side effects other women have had. She says, I'm getting relief from most of my symptoms from the estrogen and progesterone cream, but my zero libido hasn't gotten any better. Will DHEA help that? Should I try to add it?
So if your doctor prescribed DHEA, they clearly think that it's the right thing for you. DHEA can help with libido. And, you know, if you're reading about side effects from Winona women, that's one thing. If you're reading about side effects from the internet, that's a different thing. So the problem with DHEA is that it can be bought over the counter as a supplement without any doctor advice. And so people go and they buy DHEA at, the health food store, and they don't know how to dose it. And they kick 200, 400 milligrams, crazy doses. There are other people that use it as a performance enhancing drug. And in these really high doses, it can do that. And in that case, in those really high doses, it can cause really significant side effects. So the horror stories you read on the internet are often from this problem, is that people are using way too much of it. We never prescribe above 50 milligrams. We typically start people at 25 milligrams. And in fact, those side effects are fairly unusual. Now, it doesn't mean you can't get side effects. Any medication can give people side effects. And so if you're reading this from Winona women, then it's not this issue I'm talking about. It's just that some people get side effects from medicines, but most people do very well on the DHEA. And so my thing is, well, don't cheat yourself out of something that could help you because somebody else got a side effect from it, because most likely you won't. And if you do get a side effect, you stop the medication, the side effect goes away. So if you're sort of cheating yourself out of potential benefit because of this fear from other people's experiences that may not be your experience. So my recommendation would be to go ahead and start it. Libido is, an interesting thing. Definitely the menopause transition can decrease libido. It's very common, and DHEA can help a lot with that. On the other hand, libido is often multifactorial. So you want to work on other things as well. Relationship issues, you know, your teenagers at home driving crazy, stress. When we're stressed out, we don't really have time for sex. And so our libido goes down. Sometimes just the busyness of life. It's nothing bad, but you're just so busy that you don't really have time for sex. And so you don't have time for libido. Um, Body image issues can cause that. So if you gain some weight through the menopause transition, that can cause libido issues as well. So you want to work on all these things together, but also the DHEA in and of itself can help. But generally, you want to think about this globally and work on it in as many ways as you can. But the DHEA can be very helpful. And I think it's a shame if you don't get treatment that could help you because, some individuals on the internet have had, random problems. So that would be my 2 cents.
Absolutely. And it looks like we had another question about the hair care product as well. They say, I lose a lot of hair, especially when I shower. Will this new product help me? I have low thyroid and I've been on the Armor thyroid for several years, which has helped normalize my thyroid. Will this new product help with the not losing hair and growth?
Yes, it should. So it does help with, again, making your hair thicker and healthier. And so not only do you lose less hair, but your hair becomes thicker. So it works on both sides. It does take a while. Most people, at the 2 month mark, maybe starting to feel something. By 3 months, most people are seeing some improvement, but it really can be 4 to 6 months to get maximum improvement, but it should help. And as I mentioned, some women get this sort of initial shedding in the first couple of weeks. That can be a little scary. But that's just the old hairs getting sort of jettisoned to make room for the new hair growth. So don't be alarmed if you see that.
Absolutely. And then we do have a question from Eileen. And Eileen is asking, what if you take a THC edible from time to time? Can that have a bad side effect?
That shouldn't interact with your HRT. And so, that's not an issue as far as HRT goes.
Absolutely. Well, that looks like that is all the questions that we have kind of in the chat for today. But like I was saying before, thank you all so much kind of for stopping by and asking your questions. We always love getting to have these conversations with you all. Like Dr. Green said, we do have that new product, so that's a really exciting one. We also, of course, the podcast, Ask Your Doctor, and then also on our website, we have so many resources as well that are going on in there. So thank you everyone so much for being here and for really just taking, your menopause journey into your own hands. That's one thing that we love to see is, women kind of, jumping into that and making it their own. So we love to see that. We love to have you all here and we hope that we'll see you. We have these Doctor Dialogues and live Q&As twice a month. So please come to another one. We'd love to see you again. And thank you so much, Dr. Green, for your time as well. You always give such great thorough answers. And I see a lot of people saying that, in the chat as well, is that they love kind of, having a doctor really be able to kind of dive into these questions as well. I think that that is so helpful and something I love to see that Winona does as well. But I hope everyone has a great rest of your night and we hope that we'll see you at our next event.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, all. Thank you.